So in the Premier League, year upon year upon year, millions upon millions are spent on transfer fees, wages and the like, from clubs trying to gamble to reach higher up the table and clubs trying to wade off that fear of relegation. But no matter how many players are signed year on year, there are some good, there are some bad, and there are some well and truly, awful signings that I'm going to be looking at today. So I'm going to be wading away from some of the more obvious ones, the likes of Danny Drinkwater to Chelsea, Angel Di Maria to United. Some of the more well-documented ones I'm going to make sure I avoid for this video, because these are obviously ones that you probably aren't aware of, or if you were, you probably forgot about them as time has gone on. So I'm here to re-jog your memory and have a look at some of the worst Premier League flops in the modern era. So the first one we're looking at is Ricky Alvarez from Inter Milan to Sunderland in 2015 for a fee of around £9.5–10 million. And by God, there's a lot to unpack here. So Alvarez initially signed with the Black Cats on loan for £900,000 during the 2014-15 campaign. The loan did have a clause obligating Sunderland to buy Alvarez at the end of that season, as long as they stayed in the Premier League. However, a bothersome left knee didn't prevent Alvarez from passing a medical. He ended up playing just 13 games after suffering an injury to his right knee, which had undergone a microfracture, surgery years earlier. After staying up by the skin of the teeth, Sunderland tried to get out of their obligation to buy, claiming that his right knee had an injury as a byproduct of the left knee that obviously they acknowledged in the original agreement. However, here's where it doesn't get very, very well for the Mackems. Sunderland's attempt to get out of the agreement failed, and at the same time, to reinforce their standing, the club didn't offer Alvarez a contract which allowed the Argentine to sign with Sampdoria on a free transfer. So yeah, that's right. The Sunderland paid £9.5 million for a player who then immediately left the club for free. And to make matters worse, it then somehow gets worse for Sunderland. They lost their claim that Inter should have repaid much of Alvarez's loan fee and wages as a result of the injury. Then obviously Vélez Sarsfield, which is obviously the club he came through in Argentina, who obviously developed his career into what he was, successfully sued to receive $362,500 in solidarity payments. On top of all of that, Alvarez himself took Sunderland to court in the arbitration of sport to sue the club for his loss of earnings between that time. So I think it's probably best for Sunderland fans and the higher-ups at Sunderland to just pretend that, that transfer never happened, because that is woeful. From one blunder to the next, just draw a line under the carpet. It never happened. Let's move on. Number 2, we've got Bosco Balaban. He's a forward for Aston Villa, signed from Dinamo Zagreb for £7 million in the summer of 2001. So although while £7 million probably doesn't seem like the most extravagant sum in today's transfer market, it was the 23rd largest transfer fee of all time. This was in the 2001, which is roughly equates to around 30 to 35 million quid in today's game. The 6th largest fee Villa had ever paid for a player at the time. Unfortunately, according to Transfer Market, most of that fee ended up going to Balaban himself, which is a story for another day in terms of third-party ownership. It's a very awkward one to say the least. All that being said, he was one of the least impactful signings in Premier League history. It took him 8 months before he could even complete a 90-minute match, and even that came in the reserves. He never started a game, played 138 scoreless minutes over the course of 8 appearances, and eventually left back to Croatia. Yeah, another one that I think probably best, drawing the line under the carpet, just pretend it never happened. Villa fans, it never happened. If you don't remember him, just pretend it didn't happen. And for the next one, moving a bit further up north to Liverpool, Alberto Aquilani's move from Roma for £18 million in 2009. It was initially brought in as a replacement by Rafa Benitez for Xabi Alonso. Invested heavily, again, this was about 15 years ago as I'm recording this, so equates to around £40 million in today's market. Failed to live up anywhere near to his predecessors, obviously the established level of play. The Italian started just 9 games in his single season with Liverpool, and although he attributed 5 assists into his score sheet for that season, Benitez's departure from Liverpool, was abruptly followed by Aquilani himself, who was loaned to Juventus and Milan before joining Fiorentina for just £1.8 million in 2012, racking up a complete loss of £16.5 million. Yeah, again, not the best. Then we're making the 45-minute journey over to Manchester for this next one. Eliquim Mangala's moved to Manchester City from Porto for a fee which I was surprised researching this was at £40.5 million, which apparently is quite a reserved estimate as well. Apparently a few add-ons knocked up to between 41 and 42. So this was around 10 years ago. Time flies, I know. But Mangala looked to be a rising star when they signed him for Porto. And although he had a few very good games to start off his career, the majority of his first season was very promising. He was ended up being frozen out by Pep Guardiola, who didn't like his style of play. He started just 4 more league matches under the former Barcelona manager before being loaned to Everton and Valencia, and then was allowed to leave for free just a year later after that. So 40 million quid. It's a free transfer in the span of just, 7-8 years. Not the best. Not much return on investment in that one. But hey-ho. Now for this next one, we're going even further north to Middlesbrough, where Alfonso Alvarez transferred from Heerenveen in 2008 for 15 million quid. Also didn't quite go to plan. Sometimes you do mind the Eredivisie for its top scorer and come away with a Ruud van Nistelrooy. Other times you end up with Alfonso Alvarez, who scored 44 goals in 39 games for Heerenveen before joining Middlesbrough, which was an incredible return in the Dutch league. And he was actually fairly decent his first half season at the club, scoring 6 goals in just around 600 minutes. But the subsequent year after that was an absolute disaster. In 08-09, Alves scored just 4 times in 31 appearances in a Borough team that netted just 28 goals all season, the fewest of any Premier League club. Gareth Southgate's team unsurprisingly went down. And then, Alves, as quick as he could, packed his bags for Saudi Arabia. They did get a fairly decent return for about 11 million quid on him. In a subsequent interview after leaving, he did take part of the blame for his performances in, Middlesbrough's relegation. And finally, making the long journey back down south to Fulham this time, we look at Kostas Mitroglou's transfer from Olympiacos to Fulham for around 14.5 million quid 10 years ago in 2014 as well. So with Fulham desperately tempted to avoid relegation, the addition of Mitroglou seemed like a real coup. It was an absolute goal-scoring machine in the Greek League and internationally as well. 30 goals in 36 appearances for Olympiacos, which led to the Cottagers to shell out a club record fee for him in that January. Obviously, flirting with relegation mid-season. Obviously, the higher-ups, a desperate attempt to get a goal scorer to drag them away. But, as you can probably see, his involvement in this list did not go to plan. If you remember Mitroglou's career at Craven Cottage, me neither, you're not alone. Fulham sacked René Mullenstein and replaced him with Felix Magath, whose higher emphasis on fitness led to the German admit that Mitroglou straight away. It was more of a poacher Mitroglou, and Magath was, quite heavy on high pressing and the like. He ended up playing just 153 scoreless minutes for relegated Fulham and never appeared for the club again. Went back to Olympiacos on loan and ended up being sold to Benfica for 6.3 million just 20 or so months later. So again, an 8 million quid loss. A relegation in the process, not the best for the Cottagers there. And finally, we're just making the short journey over to Chelsea to have a look at one of the most bizarre transfers of all time. One of the most bizarre people as well. Adrian Mutu's signing from Parma to Chelsea in 2003 for a whopping 17 million quid, which again in those days is insanity. It's one of the first signs of the Roman Abramovich era at Stamford Bridge. Mutu was expected to form an attacking partnership with Hernan Crespo. And then, it all just fell apart from there, really, didn't it? I mean, there's not much more to say. He had a solid debut season at Chelsea. 6 goals, 8 assists. Obviously, 14 goals and assists in his first campaign. Not the best, didn't set any world alight, but did his fair share. But made just 2 appearances under Jose Mourinho before being released, and the failed drugs test, the famous reason for that falling out, really. I think it came a bit before Mourinho's tenure, but again, the bond was already there before Mourinho even stepped foot in the door for cocaine usage, which again is not something you hear much of these days, especially in an athlete's point of view, but it is what it is. Mutu was banned from the sport for 7 months, with Chelsea releasing the file before the litigation against the former player started. And after various appeals, the courts ruled that he owed Chelsea around 17 million euros from his own pocket due to his negligence, obviously, with the drug use. So, what a bizarre way to end the video, I'll be completely honest with you. There's been a few that I've just gone through. I may do a part 2 as well over the coming weeks, because there was a lot more that I've remembered, obviously, doing research on this video over the past hour or so. So, if you do want to see a part 2, drop a comment, let me know. But this has been some of the worst Premier League flops you've never heard of. And I've hoped I've refreshed your memory. If you want to see a part 2, let me know below. Obviously, subscribe, like, comment, do all that good stuff. Come on, lads. You know the drill. I hope you enjoyed anyway. Take care. Bye-bye.